Welcome to the American Intelligence Media Radio Network. I am your host, Thomas Payne, and today John Barnwell is with me, and we're going to be discussing C60. Welcome, John. You created quite a stir after being on the show recently. You discussed C60, and people are freaking out over 5G, and they believe, from what you told them, C60 is going to help them. And we had so many people write in saying they're going to build Faraday cages around their smart meters, and they're going to get Shungite, and they're going to wear it, and they're going to get themselves, some of them, their Buckminster Fullerenite C60s and drink it and put it on their body and who knows what. Anyway, people are freaking because we wrote an article. Unfortunately, as we usually do, as you well know, the Anonymous Patriots uncover things that are kind of terrifying, and then we have to sound the alarm, but we also suggest suggestions to antidote it. And that's what today is about. We're going to carry on with the conversation because so many people wrote in and said, can you tell us more about C60 and more about that stuff John Barnwell was talking about? So basically, John, let me just frame this. Buckminster Fullerene is C60 stands for carbon 60. I'll give the very simple thing that I can tell them about it. And that basically, I take it, it's an oil. They put it in olive oil, and it's supposed to not only lengthen your life, but it's supposed to handle all this radiation and coherence and all this good stuff. But there's many, 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 many things to it. But I just wonder, John, have you started building your geodesic dome in the backyard? Because I helped build one once, but they are not pentagrams and they are not hexagons. They are triangles. So when you think Buckminster Fuller and geodesic domes, you're actually not quite going down the right avenue, I assume, John. Is that correct?
When you get into Buckminster Fuller, you're entering into really a broad landscape of geometrical thinking. And his basic geodesic dome is formulated or shaped from triangles. That's true. But you have a lot of different practical designs that he worked with that incorporate different aspects of spherical geometry. I think that the main point in Buckminster Fuller's view of design is that when he looked to nature, he saw that the fundamental within nature's creative processes was based on a spherical design. And so he became intrigued by that, and he became intrigued by all the various forms of geometry that could complement that quest for a spherical shape that was found by him to be so harmonious.
So then C60, there's also C70, C80. Are those spherical also?
Well, actually, what you have with your C60, you have your 20 hexagons complemented by 12 pentagons. Now, when you start expanding into C70 and all the various permutations, there's an addition of hexagons, but there's always 12 pentagons because it's the pentagons that give you that curvature that provides the spherical shape. This can be seen in a tortoiseshell, for example. If you look on the back of a tortoise, you'll see that it's a series of hexagons, but as it goes towards the ends, it uses the geometry of a pentagon to give its curved shape.
So basically, isn't it Lao Tzu who looked on the back of the turtle shell and found the I Ching? So what are you saying, John? Confucius say, eat buckyballs?
Well, actually, that was King Wen that looked on the back of a tortoise shell and saw the hexagrams of the I Ching. But it does tie into Lao Tzu because Lao Tzu's name is Chinese for little turtle. So they have a veneration for turtles in the Orient because some of them really live a long time. And so it's a symbol of longevity.
Well, the Chinese were obsessed with longevity. They went after mercury and they poisoned themselves to death with a early death instead of elongating their life, getting some towards eternity, because that's what these kings, they had all wealth, all power. So what were they supposed to do? It's just kind of like Eric Schmidt. It's kind of like, dude Zuckerberg. It's these, but Eric Schmidt, because he's older, they got so much money. The only thing they can think about is how to extend their lives and unfortunately how to, well, we won't go into that. But do the Chinese know about C60, John? I mean, Shungite is from Russia. I understand that sometimes Shungite in water creates these C60s because there's C60s in Shungite. So the Chinese seem to know everything before everybody else. Did they know about Shungite or did they know about C60s, do you think?
Well, there's been all manner of speculation about C60. It's something that really only made its appearance in modern science in the 80s, and there was the Nobel Prize that was received by the scientists who were attributed with coming up with it. So there's actually a ton of research being done on C60. It's been combined with a lot of different chemical compositions, and it's currently under study all over the place because, of course, your pharmaceutical companies love to come up with proprietary formulas that they can patent and they can make money off, and there is no patent on C60 as itself. As unique as it is, it's something that naturally occurs. Well, if you look at like carbon black, that is used by artists, for example, or India ink, things that are made from just using like what one would call lamp black, or basically the carbon that's put out by a flame and capturing it, and then harvesting that and putting it in a solution and using it for pigment or ink or what have you. A lot of the in Russian iconography was pointed out to us by our friend Michael, who was the creator of social media, by the way, Michael McKibben. He pointed out, because he's quite knowledgeable on Eastern Orthodox art, that they use Shungite for producing pigment to make the icons in Russian Orthodox. But again, a lot of that had more to do with availability, in that there were Shungite deposits, and Shungite is a carbon form of carbon that has, maybe 3 to 6% of C60 content, but it was an easily harvestable form of carbon, so it became used for pigment and all that. And there's really no indication that there were any particular properties necessarily, although there may have been. I don't speak Russian, so I've been unable to research that after Michael's comments to us just the other day. But it's something. Again, with something like this that we're putting together, this is food for thought. We're not attempting to treat, cure, or mitigate any diseases or anything like that. We're not making money off C60. I don't sell it. You don't sell it. It's just something that we found that we think that there should be more people aware of, and that as an aspect of citizen research, which has become something that's so prominent these days, because what's coming out of our traditional media and out of corporate environment has not really been citizen friendly. So we're up to our own devices, and we don't have operating manuals. In fact, that led Buckminster Fuller to his one main book for the public was Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth.
There's a lot of speculation about Shungite, and so when we talk about the icons and the fact that Michael was explaining to us, the Shungite is laid down as the black surface behind it all. And then metals, silver, gold, copper, brass, iron and other metals are laid down. And I knew a person who was making some of these icons in a Greek Orthodox version of it. And he said, oh no, this is basically what is called electrolux. These icons actually emit energy. But what I had no idea is that Shungite can be put into an electrical circuit and it acts as if it is conductive, very, very beautiful conductor. And many say that if you put Shungite into an active electric circuit, it stops what is called dirty electricity and causes the circuit to cohere and to become more harmonic and work better and more efficiently, which is a bizarre thing. So perhaps it's the carrier wave between these other metals used in these icons as sheer speculation. But one thing I do know is my friend said that it was alchemical and that, yes, they emit energy and that they are used. He used to say that they, when the storm was coming at them, he was at a monastery at the top of a very small mountain, and they were afraid of the storm. They'd take out their most prized icon, take it out and hold it in front of the storm, and the storm would break into two parts and go around their monastery. So it's, reputed to have all kinds of power. And so people ask us last time after the broadcast, where do I get a hold of these safe space devices? Where do I get a hold of, Searle devices or anything that I happened to accidentally mention? And I didn't want to mention any of them because, just as you say, then we have to do a disclaimer. We're not doctors. We're not recommending anything. We're not recommending anything, anybody. I think there were some links put onto the site of a few places you can go where these people are experts and they can tell you just about any device there is out there. There are so many of them, we cannot enumerate them. As a matter of fact, at one point we were going to open a thing called the Quantum Parlor. So just our friends could see the devices we had accumulated to take care of these kind of things. Amazing devices, which we're not going to go into description of here today, but we called it the Quantum Parlor. And basically, it was too many things to have to share with people. And it was just too big. And so there's a lot. All you have to do is Google any of this and you will come up with all kinds of things. But what John understands is why C60 might have something to do with, in some biochemical way, of antidoting what are called radio frequency radiations, or we call EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, or basically just all those terrible billions of waves that are shooting through our bodies all the time. So John, how does C60 help with what we had been coining as the 5G radiation? How does it help antidote that?
Well, I think what we're looking at here is something that is working on numerous levels. And again, my primary emphasis in the last video we did was the ability of C60 in combination with olive oil, as were done by the original studies by Dr. Fathi Musa. And he did his studies with laboratory rats, what are called Worcester Rats. And they're rats that normally live for 2 years, and they end up dying at the end of the 2-year period, either from cancer or from pneumonia. The basic degenerative type conditions can set in as they don't have any telomeres on the ends of their DNA chromosomes. They theoretically don't have a life clock, so to speak, written into their DNA, and could go on until they get taken out by something that is a degenerative condition of some sort, or by some disease. And so they're unlike human beings who have telomeres, and once the telomere store on the end of our chromosomes is used up, they're like caps on the end of the chromosomes. A little bit is used every time a cell replicates, and once we run out of telomeres, that cell no longer replicates. So there are some people that are trying to figure out the relationship of C60 in combination with olive oil and how that might have some effect on the telomeres. Some people are speculating that it helps protect them from oxidative stress. There are even other people that are speculating maybe it's possible that they could contribute towards a lengthening of telomeres. But the jury's out on all those things. When you get into what you're talking about with all of these fields, again, I think that more closely approximates what has happened in the laboratory rat studies with radiation, to where they found that rats that were given the solution of C60 with the extra virgin olive oil, that protected them from the radiation and they didn't suffer any deleterious effects. Now, you could say, well, how would that be similar to radio wave contamination and all of that? And what you could say is that with radioactivity, what you have are particles coming from whatever the radioactive source is, coming in and disrupting the substrata, the actual composition substrata of cellular tissue and blood cells, everything else that is a basic degeneration. Now, that's very much similar to what happens in oxidative stress, in that in oxidative stress you have a free radical coming into relation with healthy tissue and scavenging electrons, causing a degeneration of tissue. So there's something disruptive on an atomic level happening there. Now, we could speculate further and say that that's very possibly what's happening when people are exposed to excessive amounts of these various electrowave, microwave, and so on and so forth, that these are disruptive on an atomic level of the electron rings. And so in that sense, could be a real analog in the very real sense of the disruption that occurs through either free radicals or also with radiation. And anything that you can do to help promote proper homeostasis or balance is going to be helpful. I point back to the observations of George Shawa, the founder of the Macrobiotic Foundation. And he found that people that lived by the ocean, quite close to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, who were hit by atomic bombs, but yet the people that lived on the ocean and did not eat Western food, but ate the traditional Japanese food that was high in sea vegetables, like seaweed and various ocean-sourced plant life and fish, that they did not suffer the bad effects of radiation, the radiation burn and all of that. They were the ones that survived that Holocaust the best. And so he figured that it was the sea salt was the magic component. But then again, if you look at sea salt, you say, what is sea salt? Well, if you look at the cellular fluids and the intracellular and extracellular fluids and your lymphatic and the serum and the blood and all of that, all those are analogs to seawater. They are meant to have the same mineral balance as the ocean. It's like you have an internal ocean going on there. So in essence, by maintaining a proper balance, which is hard to do by taking one element at a time, but it's best to get a really good source of sea salt. For example, I like the Himalayan salt, as it's some of the most pristine and balanced that you can find, and that's going to help maintain homeostasis. But as far as C60 is concerned, it seems to have kind of what you might call a cosmic ordering effect, in that when it's introduced into the body, it helps promote this balance, this equilibrium of the various forces. And also it seems to, as the lipofullerene, as it's called, which is your C60 combined with olive oil, that tends to go into the body and route through the liver and is distributed through the body, even enters past the blood-brain barrier into the brain, and that it can gain access to the cells, enter into the cells, and but they're not done figuring out exactly what the mechanism is, but they seem to have a really beneficial effect on the mitochondria of the cells. And the mitochondria, of course, is that which is providing the energy for the cells. It produces the ATP, as it's called, and that gives the cell energy. But another stipulation is that when Dr. Musa was providing this lipofullerene, he was trying to, again, find the LD50, or the lethal dosage. That was the intent of his experiment. And so he front-loaded them, as it's called. He gave them large amounts relative to their body weight, but then he only gave it to them twice a week as a maintenance, once he had provided a larger amount to get the system started on it. And that the C60 seems to be able to neutralize free radical activity, but it doesn't become reduced as a result of neutralizing the free radicals. That it's able to cause them to be transformed into harmless substances. But there's another facet to this also, because it's important to keep your lipofullerene, your C60 with olive oil or any other oil, out of light. You want to store it in a dark place. You want to expose it to light, even infrared light, although I think that the best way to formulate it would be to wear those night vision goggles while you're making it, and do it in a dark closet or something like that, because it tends to have a negative effect on it by exposing it to light. And that's one condition that can be added into this conversation. I mean, I could go on for a couple hours just scanning over all the various studies that are being done and the results. It's truly incredible.
So C60 seems to work from the inside, and I like that. You know, I drink this C60 oil you got me hooked on some time ago. Kind of tastes like recycled motor oil from a 57 Chevy. It doesn't have the best taste, and you don't put it on your body. You just take a little tiny bit of this in the morning, and it's supposed to, as you say, kind of heal those telomeres, that where your DNA at the end gets kind of ragtaggled, and somehow it helps that, and then it extends your life. Well, what you're saying then is the oxidative stress from all this radiation, from man-made radiation, can in fact antidote the degradation of DNA. And so that would be the instantaneous antidoting of these frequencies as they're occurring. Basically, is that what you're saying? And this is from the inside through nutrition, in essence, and something that we need. And as a second question, are there other things that do that you can also take?
Well, again, we're going back to what people are trying to develop concepts that can explain the kinds of results that they're getting. And when you get into this, again, you're getting into a speculative area. The thing that they're most confident about saying is that it does reduce the amount of age-associated oxidative stress. But again, they're not sure, because see, the Dr. Musa, he gave olive oil without the C60 just to see what happened. He got a 15% age-related increase just using olive oil. So that's a good thing to know. But it's when he combined the olive oil with the C60 that he got more than 90% increase in life expectancy for the Worcester rats in his laboratory. Now, if you get into understanding the way that the C60 is working, it appears it's able to recycle and repeat the activity of scavenging free radicals and do it over and over. And it also appears that it can accumulate in the mitochondria. It's been determined to have a certain antiviral action and various properties related to reduction in formation of tumors, as is shown in the rat study, because they were completely pristine without the usual tumors that tend to accumulate and bring about the demise of the rats. Now, it's interesting because there's positive indications that are coming out regarding helping out in the production of the hormones in the glandular system, and they know that there's certain even like just anecdotal stories you find all over the internet of people that take it and they find greater clarity in thinking, so that people are speculating that this could be helpful in putting off the onset of dementia or Alzheimer's and things like that. But again, this is all in the early stages, and since this only came into the scene just a few years ago, there isn't anybody around that's hasn't been doing it long enough to be able to see if this advanced age thing is going to pan out. And to be perfectly honest, if you look at the weight index of the rats relative to the amounts that they were given, most people aren't doing as much as was given to the rats based on their size and weight and so forth. But I think personally that just getting any amounts of these is beneficial, given that it's in the right form and it's not exposed to sunlight. But the mechanism, we really don't know what it is, because it doesn't appear that these buckyballs or fullerenes are breaking up in the process, that they appear to be able to take part in certain chemistry within the cell and then recycle. It appears that they can store within the fat of the body and perform functions in there that help maintain a healthy biological environment for all the processes related to fat, which is really key to understanding the effects in the brain, because your brain is largely a big ball of fat with nerves running through it.
I take that personally, I mean, when you talk about me that way.
Well, now when somebody calls you a fathead, it's actually a compliment.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But, you have this whole thing that everybody's been chasing relative to the balance of the various omegas, 3s, 6s, and 9s, which cannot be underestimated. And so for most people, actually just inducing or including in their diet some healthy oils that haven't been put through any kind of weird chemical processes or anything like that, or heating, is going to be very, very beneficial in the first place. And
since I get to speculate on this one, you said I get to speculate, right? I'm going to speculate here, because what you just described, the healing of the telomeres, when people say, okay, I got all this bombarding hitting my body all the time from EMFs, and I'm going to take a little teensy bit of oil, and inside that oil is a little teensy bit of C60, and somehow that's going to stop and help, or help heal, this bombardment. Well, I know from some research, well, I don't know, but I've seen from some research that they say there are frequencies, literally sound frequencies, basically, or frequencies that are being used that can make the same telomeres at the end of your DNA be healed, so that they're no longer breaking into pieces. And so they can do this with the frequency. I've heard that there are substances, I can name a few of them, but I don't want to get in trouble, but there's some substances you can take that also heal the telomeres. So when you were just describing the C60s as something that doesn't really get depleted in the process and something that they get stored and they keep getting used and used, you're talking my language. That's the language of enzymes. That's the language of the miracle of the body enzymes. Enzymes can conduct 100 million, a billion, in some cases a trillion reactions in 1 second. And yet it does not deplete the enzyme at all. Well, it sounds like buckyballs are like that. So I have put forth my own theory. I think I'll call this the Thomas Paine theory of nonsense of whatever it is I'm talking about. And what is going to happen here is that it's a frequency. Thomas Paine says that enzymes are like frequencies, and they don't die, by the way. Enzymes do not die. And it sounds like buckyballs might stick around at least for a long time. So is it, John, possible that like enzymes that can do so many reactions, and they say that the form of the enzyme goes in and finds the exact cell that it wants to react, the exact thing it wants to react to, and it locks into it as a form, and then communicates to it, and then unlocks and goes to the next one. Not possible. That can't happen a trillion times in a second. So it has to be through some kind of morphic field or some frequency. Is it possible that it is the frequency of C60 that is somehow telling your DNA to replicate properly? And is there any other substance that you know of that you have heard that does that is a substance you can literally take and eat? I've known of herbs that supposedly heal the telomeres, but I do not know of anything that can, except that I've heard of C60 that you can take through your mouth. I'm trying to get you to warm up to other things that I know you don't really want to talk about, but are there any other substances, John, that can do that? And do you think my Thomas Paine theory of a nonsense enzyme communication could apply to C60s, that they're sending out a frequency, and that frequency is what's telling the DNA to basically not fall apart at the end?
Well, that brings up an interesting concept, because you could go and say, okay, well, what do we have here? We know that DNA is associated with infrared, okay? Because that is key to its discovery floating freely in outer space. And that we know that there's an infrared emission from the buckyball form of carbon. And so in looking at that, you go, okay, well, what's up with that? And then you go and you start looking into far infrared therapy, for example. That's become, you don't hear about it as much lately, but it's still very much out there, and it's very beneficial for cellular activity in general. And so you could speculate that there's some kind of infrared therapy going on intracellular, which is quite an interesting concept to work with. And I really don't know of any analogs that are being done, but they probably are being done somewhere. Really, I think for me, it looks more like there's what you might call a mitochondrial reset, in that it's able to constellate around the mitochondria with the lipids, and that it has what you call hydrophobic tendency, meaning that it has an aversion to water per se, but it can incorporate itself directly into cell membranes, and it can disrupt the pathways of certain things that are not, shall we say, good for the body, and affect the action of superoxide dismutase, for example.
Fascinating. You know, this study that you've had to understand bioelectrical energy cellularly has, led you to redox molecules and all your different research and the different types of substances that you actually have marketed and distributed to help people. And so tell me, seaweed is supposed to help stop radiation, right? And aloe vera, I've heard, is something you can take that can help for people who have electro-hypersensitivity. And other such substances. I know you have a broad spectrum of your approach to nutrition and all the different things that you can take naturally that can help these things. Do those substances, you think that they would help? Seaweed, aloe vera, and other such things, thistle, and these other things that we hear can help not only with radiation, but also with the elongation of life, what everybody's looking for, a longer life.
Well, yeah, I think that there's a lot of promise in that direction. If really with aloe vera, if you go back to the late 40s, early 50s, the government was doing studies on radiation. And there's a book I have somewhere in my library, hidden away upstairs. Very hard to find, but it's a study of these experiments and all of that. And basically what the government found is they found that taking fresh aloe vera and putting it on the little critters in the study, what they would do is they would do radiation burns on the rabbits. And then they'd have the control rabbits that got no treatment, and then they would put dried aloe vera on some, and then they put fresh aloe vera on others. The ones with fresh aloe vera completely recovered. There was a moderate recovery with the dried aloe vera, and then there was, of course, no recovery at all from the ones that didn't receive any treatment. And there was the isolation of the beta mana molecule in aloe vera, which became very popular with mannitose, but then it became expensive, and they started using all different forms that were not the same, and they weren't getting the same effect, and so you hardly hear about it anymore. But aloe vera is truly remarkable, as are sea vegetables. I think that the amount of aloe vera I've personally consumed in my life is thousands of gallons, but it's only the inner gel. I wouldn't recommend anybody consuming internally the outer part of the plant. That's good for topical use on your skin, but it's not meant for internal use.
Our discussions of Shungite made a lot of people go out and get it, and we got some and we started playing with more and more of it, and it is an amazing substance to put on your skin. Also, we recommended what Edgar Cayce recommended, which is ionized or carbonated ionized iron, which is basically steel. Anything steel, put it on your skin, and it can stop these vibrations of viruses, and also the coheres and discharges the electromagnetic frequencies. But one thing that I just found, John, which is just amazing, because I had speculated in my little speculative mind that silver would help. And yes, they found that if you take bamboo fiber and you interweave silver into it, that this can stop the electromagnetic frequencies even penetrating into your body. Rudolf Steiner had said peat moss would do the same, and some of his followers have created some clothes from peat moss where you can actually wear a substance that will collect this. Also, I mentioned this in another talk, you can buy these now, they're jackets, and they have pads on them, and those pads collect electromagnetic frequency before it gets into your body and puts it into a battery that you wear in this little jacket that you wear. So you're actually collecting all these frequencies that are incoherent, cohering them into a charge for the battery that can then be used in your cell phone. So there are jillions of these kind of things. There's little tiny patches you can put on your cell phone. There's patches you can put on yourself. On and on and on. We mentioned biogeometry. We mentioned safe space. We mentioned Spirl. We mentioned all these different things. So there's a lot out there. So though it is an amazingly horrible assault upon us from these frequencies, especially going now from 4G microwave into 5G milliwave, it's getting more dynamic all the time. It's getting 10 times as bad when it goes to 5G. We want to continue this discussion. We want people to become awake. We want people to wake up. Oh, look what happened. Even the top execs at Google at Facebook come out and at Twitter and so on and so forth. I don't let my children use this addictive psyops, digital dopamine. They all are coming out saying, don't let your child near it. Because as we have pointed out in our very alarming discoveries and our research for our Citizens Intelligence Report, this is a very dangerous thing, and it should not be allowed. We should have a moratorium on it, and we should learn what these things are before we start incorporating them, and basically having no moral overview, no philosophy of science, and no stopping of technical innovation. No one is looking at whether these things can harm human beings. The studies that are done, very short. They get this stuff out. We'll have 5G. 5G is already coming in through your cable, folks. Sorry, what we've told you has already happened. We didn't know how bad it is, and every day we look, we see that it's worse. But every day that we look, we also see more and more antidotes, more and more things you can do, more and more actions you can take, referendums, petitions, approaching your representatives, your senators at the state, at the federal level. There's a lot that you can do. And as soon as people wake up, it's like what's happening with Facebook. People are waking up and they're saying, wait a second, wait, this is a drug? This is a digital drug? Yes, it is, folks, and it was planned that way. So what we need to do is don't continue to take the pill that keeps you asleep. Take the pill that wakes you up. This is a new awakening. And so we call in John Barnwell whenever we can't quite get the full high elevation view or perhaps the very, very deep view. And his insight in this area is actually profound. We could go on discussing many things. I tried to get him off into other topics. As you know, I'm good at that. But there are many things that can help. And John, we want to thank you today for being with us because what we're trying to do is make sure this conversation stays open and the lines of communication reveal what is really going on, that machine intelligence is in a war against human intelligence. And we're on the side of human intelligence, in case you wondered. So, John, thank you for being with us today.